Hi guys, in this video we're going to have a look at area of 2D shapes. So we've got a variety of shapes here. We've got some squares, rectangles, parallelograms, triangles, trapeziums. We've got some compound shapes as well. And we're also going to find out, if you're told the area of a 2D shape, how you can go backwards to find out a missing length. So lots to get through. So let's get started. So the first shape we have here is a square, but we know that because these little lines here tell us that these lengths are all the same. And to find out the area of a square, it is the base times by the height. Or length times width. It's entirely up to you what you use, but essentially it's the base times the height. So in this case, the area is 2, which is the base, times by the height, and because it's a square, the height is also going to be 2 centimeters. So the area in this case, quite simply, is just 4 centimeters, and this time, because it's the area, it's squared. Okay, so depending on what the units are, in this case they're centimeters. If you're dealing with the area, it must be centimeters squared. Okay, let's have a look at the next one then. So here we have a rectangle, and the good news is it's the same formula. It's just the base times the height. So the base of the rectangle is 5, the height is 3, so the area in this case, 5 times 3 is just 15, and again, centimeters squared. Nice and easy. Parallelograms tend to trip people up for some reason, okay? The good news is, again, it's the same formula. It is just the base times the height. So the base in this case is 4 centimeters, and this is where people go wrong. The question might try and trip you up by having the slanted height here. We're not interested in that. That only comes into play if you're dealing with perimeter type questions. But for area, and you want the height, it is what we call the perpendicular height. So basically from the bottom of the shape, going straight vertically to the top. So in this case, the height would be 2. And of course then that gives us the area, 4 times 2 is 8 centimeters squared. Okay, so just be careful, not the slanted height, we want the perpendicular height, so straight from the bottom going directly vertical to the top of the shape. Okay, so those 3 shapes all have the same formula, base times the height. So what if we're told the area? Well, just substitute it into the equation. So the area is 42, let's do it here. So we have 42 is the area, and then that's going to equal the base, which is 7, times by the height, which is x. So I've just substituted it into the formula. The area is 42, the base is 7, but we don't know the height is just x. Now you might be able to obviously work that out straight away if you're pretty good at your times tables, but failing that, or if it's more tricky, use the flowchart. So I start off with x, what do I do to it? I times it by 7. What do I get? I get 42, so go backwards, 42. Remember, when you go backwards, we do the opposite. So instead of timesing by 7, we'll divide by 7, and we get back to x. And of course, that will mean that x is 6 centimeters. Okay, so just check it. 7 times 6, 42. Yep, happy days, that works. Right, stepping up just a tad, we're now going to have a look at triangles. Now, a triangle is very similar to a rectangle, square, and parallelogram. You do the base times by the height still, that's still the same. And unfortunately, this is where people forget, because it's a triangle, you need to divide it by 2. So if you imagine, if you had this as a rectangle, okay, the triangle is half the rectangle. That's why you got to half it, and that is the most common mistake people will make. They will forget to half the triangle. And just like with the parallelogram, I'm not interested in the slanted height here, which is 5. I want the perpendicular height, which is here, which is 4. Okay, so the area will equal the base, which is 6, times by the perpendicular height, which is 4, and then I'm going to divide that by 2. So 6 times 4 is 24, half it, we get 12. So the area in this case, 12 centimeters squared. Okay, you must remember that divide by 2. I've lost count how many times people forget to divide by 2. And again, going backwards, when we're told the area, that should be centimetres squared, when we're told the area, how do we find a missing length? We'll substitute it into the formula. So the area is 45, so I've got 45, and that's going to equal the base. Don't know the base, that's got the letter B. I'm going to times it by the height. We know the height is 9, and then we need to divide it by 2. And then we'll do the flow chart again. So B, the first thing I do is times it by 9, then I divide by 2, and I end up with the area of 45. So 45 times by 2 divided by 9. So 45 times by 2 is 90. Divide that by 9, we get 10 as the base, and obviously it's centimetres. So check it. Base times height, 10 times 9 is 90. Half it, 45. Yep, that works. Okay, so there's some of the more basic type ones. Let's have a go at some of the more slightly trickier ones. Right, so here we have the trapezium. Okay, we know it's a trapezium because it's got 4 sides and 2 of them are parallel. Okay, so that's how you can spot a trapezium. And the parallel sides are crucial to working out the area, because the formula for this, I'll call the area A, is you must add the parallel sides. Now this might be rotated or round the other way or however, but if it's a trapezium, it will always have 2 parallel sides, and they're the 2 sides that you must add. You must add the parallel sides. And again, you want to times it by the perpendicular height. Now this slanted height nonsense, perpendicular height, so we would times that by 5, and then we would half it. Okay, so that is the way you work out the area of a trapezium. Add the parallel sides, times it by the height, and then you half it. So let's work that out. So we've got 3 add 7, which is 10, times by 5 is 50, half it, we have 25 centimetres squared. Excellent. Okie dokie, and we've got 2 examples here. Again, we're told the area and we need to go back. In this case, I need to find the height. So if the area is 18, let's substitute it into our formula up here. So the area is 18. And the formula would be I need to add the parallel sides. So you need to do 4 plus 5. I then need to times it by the height. That's what I don't know. And I then need to half it. Okay, so I've just substituted this straight into the formula. Now we can do a little bit of tidying up there, because in the brackets I just have 4 plus 5, which we know is 9. And then I need to times that by h and divide that by 2. So I've just literally just simplified what's in the brackets to be this. And then that is what I'm going to flow chart. So I have my height, I times it by 9, I divide it by 2, and I have the area of 18. So let's go backwards, 18 times by 2, and we divide by 9. Okay, so let's have a look. 18 times 2 is 36, divided by 9 gives me 4. So h will be 4 centimetres, or make it really clear and just say h is 4 centimetres over here, or something like that. Obviously in the exam it should have a space for the answer. No difference here, exactly the same strategy. I'm going to substitute it into the formula. So I'm told the area is 13. I'm going to add the parallel sides. Unfortunately this time one of the parallel sides is x, but it's not a problem. I'll just do x plus 8 times it by the perpendicular height, in this case is 2, and then I half it. And then again, all we do is flowchart. So I have my x, I've got to do what's in the brackets first, which is add 8, then I need to times by 2, and then I need to divide by 2, and I get the area of 13. So 13, going backwards, times by 2, divide by 2, and then opposite of plus 8 is take away 8, and I get back to the length x. So 13 times by 2 is 26, half it is 13, and then 13 take away 8 is 5. And of course, substitute it back in and you can check it works. Okay, so there's some of the basic formulas and ways to use the basic 2D shapes and how you can go back once you've been given the area. Now I'm going to have a quick look at compound shapes. Now there's no formula to work out the area of a compound shape. What you have to do is split the shape up into multiple shapes of the shapes that you do know how to work out the area of. So the most obvious one with this one is to split this up into 2 rectangles, which is what I've just done here. Okay, so this rectangle here, just like we learned before, is going to be the base times the height. Well, the base here is just going to be 1 millimeter, because the base there and the top there are just going to be the same. So to work out the area of that, base times height, so 1 times 7 is going to give me 7 millimeters squared. Notice the units are now millimeters, not centimeters. And I need to work out the area of this square here, sorry, this rectangle here. Well, the height is 2, and the common mistake is people will use 10, but this is the whole length, which is 10. And I know that this is 1 millimeter, which means what's left is 9 millimeters. Okie dokie. So then I can just use my formula to work out the area of a rectangle, which is base times height. So that's 9 times 2, base times the height. And that gives me 18 millimeters squared. So the total area will just be my 18 from that rectangle plus my 7 from that rectangle. So the area of this in total will be 25 millimeters squared. Simple as that. This one here, I've got a square in the middle. Again, I know it's a square because I've got my little lines that say all the sides are the same. And I have 4 triangles, all the same. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is work out the area of the square. So I'm going to split this up into its different shapes. Luckily, the question's already done that for me. So the area of the square, base times height. Remember, it's a square, so 3 times 3. And that's going to obviously give me an area of 9 centimeters squared. Now let's work out what one of the triangles is. Well, the base is going to be 3. Let's just use this one as an example. So the base will be 3 because it's the same there. Now what's the height? And this is slightly trickier. I know that the square is 3 centimeters and the whole thing is 11. So 11 take away 3 is 8, and then I've got equal sides here. So what's left is 8. I need to half it, so I have 4 centimeters and 4 centimeters, which means the height of these triangles is 4 centimeters. So the height there is going to be 4. So we've got the base, which is 3, times by the height, which is 4. Remember, it's a triangle, so we half it. So 3 times 4 is 12, half is 6 centimeters squared, and that's the area of one of the triangles. But I've got 4 of them, so I need to times that by 4 to give me 24 centimeters squared. So the total area will be the area of the square, which we worked out to be 9, plus the area of the 4 triangles, which is 24. And that's going to give me the overall area of 33 centimeters squared. Okay, so it's not too bad. All you got to do is split the shapes up into 2D shapes of what you know how to work out the area of, and then just step by step work them out and then add them together. Okay, 2 more examples now. So this is the other type of question that you could be asked. You could be asked to work out the shaded area. Unfortunately, when I went over the highlighter, it did just rub these, but it should be okay. And the way to do this is to work out the area of everything. In this case, it's in the shape of a trapezium. Then work out the area of the shapes that are missing, and then just take them away. Before we were adding them because they were all together, but these ones are missing, so we're going to take away. So let's start with the area of the trapezium. So I'm just going to draw a little sketch of a trapezium so the examiner knows that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to add my parallel sides. So I'm going to do my 10 plus the 18, times that by the perpendicular height, which is 8, and then I'm going to half it. Okie dokie, so I am just going to cheat with this one because the numbers are slightly big. So 10 plus 18, do that bit first, press equals. If you press times 8 now, without putting those in brackets, BidMaths will do 18 times 8, then add the 10. So just be careful that if you're going to do it step by step like I'm doing, just do it, make sure you press equals, times by 8, and then divide by 2. So we have 112 centimetres squared is the whole thing. So now let's work out the area of this little triangle here. Okay, so the base is 5, times by the perpendicular height, which is 3, and then we half it. So 5 times 3 is 15, half that is 7.5 centimetres squared. And then we've got our final little shape there of the rectangle. And again, it's the base times height, so the base is just the same as the top there. So 4 times by the height, which is 2, which obviously gives me my 8 centimetres squared. So what is the area of the shaded or shaded area? Let's just write that down. So the shaded area is going to be the total area, which we worked out to be 112. Take away the area of the triangle, so take away the 7.5. Take away the area of the rectangle, so take away the 8. And that's going to leave us with 96.5 centimetres squared. Okay, and it's as simple as that. All shaded type questions are always the same. Work out the total, complete area, and then start taking what's missing away. And the last question here, what can it look like in the exam? This is just a little quick example. So a farmer needs fertilizer for one of his fields. Each lorry load of fertilizer will cover 70 metres squared and cost £150. How much does the farmer pay in total? So here's his field. Again, just like we did on the previous page, I'm just going to split this shape up into two shapes that I know how to work out the area. So I've got my rectangle and my triangle. So my rectangle, base times height. So if that top bit there is 60, this will also be 60. So it's just going to be 60 times 100, base times height. So 60 times by 100 is going to give me 6,000, and this time it's in units, is meters squared. And then I have my triangle. And again, the base, just be careful, if the whole thing here is 135 and this is 60, what's left? Well, that's 75 meters. Same thing with the height. The whole thing is 100. If that's 20, that must mean that this is 80. Okie dokie. So base of the triangle is 75 times by the height, which is 80, and it's a triangle, so we half it. I am just going to cheat on that one. 75 times by 80 divided by 2 is 3,000 meters squared. So in total area is 9,000 meters squared, because I just add those two together to get the total. But we're not done there though. It says each lorry load will cover 70 meters squared. So I need to work out how many lorry loads I need. Now to do that, all I do is take my area, which is 9,000, and I divide it by 70. I see how many 70s go into it. So 9,000 divided by 70, and it's going to be a decimal. So 128.571428. Now what some people will do is they will take that and they will now times it by 150, because that's how many lorry loads they need. However, you can't have 0.571428 of a lorry load. So what we have to do is round it up to the nearest lorry load, in which case that means I'm going to need 129 lorry loads. Okay, so just be careful with that. Always round that up. Even if it was 128.1, it would still be 129 loads because you still need that amount of fertilizer. So with these types of questions, just be careful. Just make sure you always round it up to the nearest whole number. And then if I need 129, and they each cost 150, so 129 lorry loads times by 150, it's going to be 19,350 pounds. So again, just a little bit of a contextual type question for you to have a look at there with this very common mistake that is made. So make sure you just round that up. Okay, so that's area of 2D shapes. Lots of examples there to think about. So hopefully that helps whatever task you're trying to complete. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.